Okay, what's going on, everybody? I am Mang. Welcome back to Roll Mangging, the weekly series where I get to nerd out extensively. Alright, so taking a ever so slight break from our Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which we will return to in a couple weeks, but today we tried out a new system which I talked about a little while back called Fate, or Fate Core. And so I've been talking about this with Ziggy, and I've been saying, how cool it is, we should really check it out, it's a lot more narrative heavy, blah blah blah. And he watched the overview video, and he was like, yeah, this does sound cool. So he decided that instead of our D&D day, we're going to have a Fate day instead. We're going to do a one-shot. Okay, so we did indeed do a one-shot. It was myself, Mert, and Commander Kill, with Ziggy DMing it. Alright, so I was the only one that has read the rules. Alright, and Ziggy watched my video, and that was it. That was all the knowledge we had. So I was kind of the teaching one, but I was not DMing. It would have made more sense for me to DM, but yeah, you know me. Okay, so Ziggy was in charge, and I'm like, it's generic system, so whatever setting you want. And he's like, okay. He's like, maybe something sci-fi. And then he's like, you know what, I think it's going to be set in the Starcraft universe. And I'm like, alright, that sounds cool. And so that's what we did. We ran it in the Starcraft universe. Now, I do not have a great amount of knowledge. I know the basics. I never played through any of the campaigns, really. But I know the Terrans, the Protoss, the Zerg. I know some names. I know nobody likes the Zerg. And, I've played some multiplayer, so I have a kind of idea. Ziggy knows, he knew the most, which is why he picked it. But it was like it was kind of more inspired by Starcraft. So there was Terran, Protoss, Zerg, of course, but it was also, he drew inspiration from Star Wars, Firefly, Star Trek, all sorts of just sci-fi stuff. Okay, and so we all get there, and we go through character creation. Now, Fate character creation can be isolated, or it can be very involved. We kind of did a bit of both. So you're making your character, and you can just come up with all your own information, your own aspects, or whatever, and just, this is my character, this is who he is, this is what he's done. Or you can talk to the other players and be like, how do I know you? Where did we meet? What have we done in the past? And how can we kind of make some aspects that work off of each other so that we are a team, And so we did a little bit of that, and I actually like that, because we never really do that in D&D ever. At least I don't. I'm always just, look at me, I'm cool, I'm Frederick Zoller, I'm Ovum, fuck you, there's never this camaraderie, and so I think that I should cultivate that, because it builds a much more interesting story. It involves everybody, rather than just, oh, you're this guy, and nice to meet you, let's go adventure, we have this backstory. Now, if you're starting a campaign and the point is you don't know each other, then obviously, whatever. But if you have the opportunity to kind of build this collective story, that's what it's all about. Okay, so characters. He basically gave us some archetypes, but just any sci-fi thing you can think of, a kind of character. If you want to be Malcolm Reynolds, if you want to be like Luke Skywalker when he was, at the start. If you want to be just like a doctor, whatever, whatever you can think. A soldier, a Marine, an ex-Marine. He let us be Terran or Protoss. So there was a lot of flexible room. So as for myself, I've been reading a lot of the book, The Lies of Locke Lamora. Fantastic book. I'm not a book guy, alright? I'm really not. I love Artemis Fowl, that's about the that's about the end of it. Obviously, I've read plenty of Lovecraft, and I do enjoy that. But as far as just picking up and reading random books, I don't do that. So I had heard some things about Lies of Locke Lamora, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna check it out. It's really damn good. So I had to make Locke Lamora as a kind of sci-fi character. So I'm like a human scoundrel. He would call himself, I guess, a privateer. So yeah, that just kind of a thieving character. And so the first thing is the high concept. So the single aspect, the single line that best sums up your character. And as I discussed, the best aspects are going to be they're double-edged, both positive and negative. So you don't want to be just too broad, and this is something that they kind of struggled getting because, you need to see why it's supposed to be double-edged, when you're thinking of aspects. So they one of the first was like, what about like headstrong for like your trouble, And it was like, yeah, that's really just vague, and it doesn't really. You're just kind of a generic character then, The more specific you are, the more unique your character is, and this they talk about in the book as well. And this they also talk about can help with world building. Like they had a character who was like a martial artist. So you could just write as an aspect martial artist. Or you could build on that then. And you could put martial arts disciple or something like that. Or you could build onto that and go disciple of the Iron Shroud. And you can just make that up, And your DM reads it and he's like, huh, okay. And so now he has something to build off of himself, world building, but then also if he wants to create like an adventure for this, for the characters, he can look at that and be, oh yeah, he's a disciple of the Iron Shroud. Or you could build onto that and say an ex-disciple of the Iron Shroud. Like, oh, what happened there? There's so much more uniqueness there than just martial artist. You see what I'm saying? So the aspects process probably takes the longest because you really got to think about, the uniqueness of your character and how he exists in the world and how he makes it different. Okay. So Locke's high concept was I originally wrote thief for hire. I was thinking about that and I was like, yeah, that sums him up, but it could be more than that. So then I added no questions asked. So then it's like, okay, then that defines this character a little bit more. Yeah, he's a thief for hire, but now it's like, okay, he doesn't ask any questions. That adds just an extra piece to the puzzle of his personality. That's the point. So thief for hire, no questions asked. Mert put mercenary for the highest bidder. Okay, so he could have just put mercenary for hire, but mercenary for the highest bidder implies that sense of, I want to say immorality, but I guess apathy would be the better word, where he doesn't really care what he's doing as long as he gets paid. So then the DM can then use that where an issue of maybe moral conflict arises. He's going to maybe offer compel based on whoever's offering the most money and be like, yeah, this guy is freaking terrible, but he's offering you a lot of money. So, so again, yeah, the positive and the negative. And Commander Kill went with a Protoss. and he went with kind of a Protoss Templar, which are kind of the spellcasters, I guess. And I'm trying to remember his high concept. I have the sheet right over there. Oh, I think his was like Protoss Exile. Or something like, yeah, I think it was Exile Protoss. And so that could definitely be improved on. You know, all of ours could be improved on, of course, but Protoss, Exile Protoss is like, okay. You know, it definitely sums up a big chunk of your character. You know, there's a mystery to it. There's a negative connotation to it. You know, why have you been exiled? What did you do wrong? You know, what happened to that? I'm just not sure. I guess that was a problem with all three of ours during the session. I don't think we really invoked any of them, and mine actually suffered some overlap. You don't want overlap with your aspects because you want a greater variety, so you just, because you're only gonna, well, there are situations where you might invoke two, but in general you want a bigger variety. So I don't think I invoked Thief for Hire, no questions asked. Well, I mean, it depends, but at least for this session I didn't get to invoke it. So the whole, I mean, the main point of aspects is the invoking. So you want a high concept that you're gonna be able to invoke at some point. So I'm not sure when you would invoke Exile Protoss. There are situations, I guess, where you might be talking to another exile or something like that. But yeah, so okay. So then we moved on to trouble. My trouble came pretty quickly. At least in the book, Locke's personality flaw, I guess you might say, is he steals too much. He doesn't really need to steal, but he just does it. So I put kleptomaniac. Because, you know, trouble is going to be mostly negative. That's where a lot of your compels are going to come from, is your trouble. So I can easily see it happen during the session where it's just like, yeah. You see this character, you shouldn't steal from him, you're going to steal from him. You know, so give me my fate point and let me pickpocket him. So, boom, easy. But then, you know, it's definitely invocable in situations where a character with a history of kleptomania is going to have, you know, an edge here. So, yeah, I thought that was a good trouble. Again, perhaps a bit broad. I could have fine-tuned it a little bit, but kleptomaniac. Mert put shoot first, ask questions later, which did turn out to be plenty of fun. That's a great one for compels. Less so, perhaps, on invokes. Like, you got to be able to think of invokes when you come up with it, you know? So, when would you invoke shoot first, ask questions later in a positive sense? Yeah, it's kind of tricky. So, it's fun for compels. And, you know, you can do aspects that are just all positive or all negative. It's just that the best ones are both because you get the most use out of them. So you can have a trouble that's all negative. It's fine. You're going to get a lot of compels out of it, which he did. He was feeding on the fate points because it was just, you know, it was funny. But, yeah, okay. And Commander Kill's trouble was reckless endangerment or something like that, where he would just throw heed to common sense and just charge in to fuck shit up. I don't think we got any compels out of that, but there wasn't a tremendous amount of compels out of the short session we did. Okay, so then we went on to just the regular 3 aspects, and I don't remember all theirs, so I'll just talk about mine. One of Locke's nicknames in the book, although, you know, nobody would be able to actually attribute it to him, is the Thorn of Camor, which is the city. Like, he's just, you know, he's their problem. So I put Thorn of the Dominion, which is the main Terran government, I guess. So, you know, like, I have a reputation, for good or for bad, you know. So when I'm talking to other thieves or something like that, you know, I can name drop. You're talking to the fucking Thorn of the Dominion here, you know. So that could be invokes. But then, you know, if you're getting into a situation where that's working against you, yeah, they're gonna want to kill you pretty badly. So it works both ways. But then it's also the history that reputation brings. You know, how many jobs I've pulled off in the past to earn me that title. So I thought that was a good aspect. Then I was talking to Mert, and I was telling him about how they do kind of collaborative stuff, and I was like, you know, maybe we should do something, because we kind of have similar characters. I'm sure we would have worked together at some point. So I was like, we should be part of, like, a troop, you know, a gang. And so, of course, the gang that Locke is a part of is the Gentleman Bastards. You know, they're bastards, but they're going to be classy about it. So he and I both wrote Member of the Gentleman Bastards. And then I wanted a final one that kind of did both and represented a bit more of the character and stuff like that, and go a little bit of a direction that I don't normally go in. So I wrote, I would die for my team. And that actually did find some use. Not from Compels, but I was able to invoke it at some point, where, you know, for better or for worse, he's gonna stand by these guys till the end. So that's a good aspect. You know, you can use that for any character. Just, I would die for my team. A DM could probably find plenty of use out of that. Okay, and so that was the aspect. That sums up Locke. Now, I could have, you know, if I went back through that and I was like, let me come up with some new ones, I'm sure it'd be, you know, a little bit different, but that, you look at that and like, yes, that is a unique character, you know, boom. No doubt about it. That is Locke Lamora. Boom. So that was cool. So then we moved on to skills. Nothing really crazy here. Ziggy didn't add any skills for this one shot. He might add them in the future. He might not. So we just went with the default list. And so I put stealth, burglary, notice all at the top. Yeah, I mean, you do get a bunch of skills that you're good at, but having +1 is not, I mean, it's not amazing. So, you know, you're going to be bad at shit. I was bad at, I was not tough. I had nothing in physique, nothing in will, so I was just kind of like, hey man, don't mess with me. Even having like deceive at +1, it's like you're not going to be bluffing too many people. He says he will add skills in the future. But that's what I like about it, is you're going to be good at just, you know, a few things, and you're going to be damn good at them, right? You know, dice be damned. But then you're going to be bad at things. You're going to need help with some shit. You know, you're not going to be just all around just a good character. So I like it. We'll talk about the dice in a little bit during the actual play session, but yeah, I like the skill system as it is. Alright, so then stunts. I think stunts do take quite a while. There is a big list of predetermined stunts, which I used. Everybody else, I think, made up their own. It didn't take a tremendous amount of time, but balancing them is sometimes... I mean, I explained, it's like, this is not... You can't have a stunt that is just always in play for any skill. So you can't just have a stunt that's like, +2 to burglary. Done. No, there has to be situations where it's good. Just cool situations that make your character better. You know, so you could have +2 to burglary for picking pockets. You know, it would be not incredibly cool, but that would be situational enough that it was like, all right, I'll allow that. So I took face in the crowd. So I have +2 to stealth when I'm trying to hide in a crowd. You know, that's fine. Boom. It's not very exciting. It isn't. I know. But it's simple. It works. That's a stunt. You know, I'm good just blending in. I also went with Notice Tell. So, for future characters, for like an actual campaign, I'm probably going to come up with all my own, because I think it's cooler that way. These ones are kind of vanilla. So Notice Tell, instead, you use Notice instead of Empathy to defend against Deceive. So if somebody's trying to bluff you, you kind of just observe them and see if they have any like twitches or something. So I liked that. And then I went with Burglar's Signature, and I thought this was cool. It was like, I'm the Thorn of the Dominion. So the Burglar's Signature, you pick one of your aspects that relates to burglary, and then you get a free invoke on that aspect when you do a burglary roll once per scene. Because that's just like, you know, that's your signature thing that you do as a burglar. So I picked Thorn of the Dominion. It was like, yeah, I can get in out of any place. I can do it. I can steal your shit. So, yeah. All right, and then it was extras, and that wasn't, like, I explained, like, it's just anything that's not an aspect, skill, or stunt is an extra, you know? So, the list was really short. Literally, all I wrote on extras was Thieves' Tools. I mean, it's not like your whole inventory. It can be if you want to run that game where it's your whole inventory, all your money, whatever, like D&D, whatever, you know, boom, you can write all that down. Or you can just assume you have some stuff at all times and you write down the special stuff. Or you write, like, your ship and the name of your ship and all that, you know. It's really the box that they give you here is way too small, you could say, depending on what you're doing. Really, the extras box is another piece of paper, probably. I kind of like having full inventories and keeping lists. Like Ovum for D&D. His inventory is like a page long. So it's just like, yeah, buy this, keep this, throw this. Because yeah, I like having characters that have something for every situation. Because it's easier for my mind if I don't have to limit myself. For a plan, you know, where it's just like, shit, if I only had a hacksaw. Oh wait, I have a hacksaw, you know, if I had a bell, if I had a whistle, if I had rope, if I had blah blah blah. So I like having the full list, so it's not just like, why would you have that, you know, there's no question about it then. So yeah, I like having full inventories, we'll probably go with that. But for now, one shot, I just wrote Thieves' Tools. I was like, I don't want him to question that. I have my Thieves' Tools. Okay, and that was pretty much it. Mert wrote his gun down, and that was done. So we began. Okay, and so we began with the three of us kind of just hitching a ride on a ship going out to the outer reaches of Dominion space. And so he's like, you can come up with a reason why you're going out there. And I would just look at Mert and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty hot right now, so, you know, we're taking a chance to cool off. And Commander Kill, his character was a hunter of Zerg. So he's an exile Protoss because he was overzealous in his actions. And so he just hates Zerg more than life itself. So he's going out there to hunt them. And I was like, okay. And Ziggy too made a character, an NPC, or a DM PC, but it didn't really see any playtime. He just wanted to make a character with us. Okay. So quickly, a beeping noise alerts us all to the bridge, and we see a kind of derelict spaceship in front of us. And you've seen this countless times. You know, it's kind of a sci-fi trope. The lost ship floating through space. What's on it? What happened? It was very generic cliche, but it was fine. It's a one-shot. You know, it'll be fun. My character is not suited to this at all. But, okay. I was able to work with it. So, you know, there could be anything on that ship. It could be like Dead Space. It could be like Lost in Space. It could be like Star Trek. I don't know if that's ever happened on Star Trek, but I assume so. Anyways. So he's like, you know, we're low on fuel. I don't know why we're low on fuel. We've been on the ship for 2 days. We're flying into the outer reaches of space, and we're low on fuel. I don't know. I don't question these things, but he's like, we're low on fuel, so we could use the supplies if they have any. you guys want to go check it out? And I'm like, all right, but I get to keep whatever I find. I'm like, sure. So we airlock. We get the airlock going, and the three of us head on there. And we find that it is locked with a keypad. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll do my thing. And so I bust out my little hacking device, because thieves' tools in sci-fi probably involve something like that. And so I plug it in, and we roll. I succeed pretty easily. He gave me a free invoke, and I had to later correct him on this. Again, he has not read the rules, so he's DMing this whole thing without reading the rules. He gave me a free invoke because he's like, this is Dominion technology, you're familiar with this, have a free invoke. I was like, okay. And so you don't give free invokes often. Not just for doing nothing. If I wanted to invoke my Thorn of the Dominion because I've had history with Dominion technology, I could spend a fate point and add the +2. You don't. That's the whole point of invoking. He later understood that. So I hacked it open. And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, welcome, Dominion Lieutenant. And I'm like, yeah, it's good to feel welcome. And so I'm like, lead point, Mert. That's what you do. He was fully decked out in his battle suit and his Gauss rifle and shit like that. He's all the muscle. He's basically the Gene Tannen of the book. So he goes in, and I'm just kind of creeping around, and we're walking basically around the airlock area, and a Zergling jumps us. Surprisingly. So Mert just turns around, and okay, so guns. I'm gonna have to do some reading on this. Weapons in general, really. I didn't have the rules in front of me, so I just I didn't make it up, but I was trying to remember what it said. So I believe weapons in Fate have a number attached to them. I just couldn't remember if it adds to the roll or if it does something different. So we just had it add to the roll of, and he gave it 3, which seems really high. So he rolls, say, a +1. He's got a 4 shoot, so that's 5. He adds the 3, so that's 8. That's pretty damn high. Now, they do get to roll their dice and their athletics, and they can invoke stuff if they want. And it does, just shift damage, so it's not just 8 damage, dead. So, he could have dropped it down to 3 or something like that, which isn't terrible. But Ziggy's just it pops open. Because, the golden rule of Fate is don't let the mechanics, don't let the rules stop you from doing what the story wants to do. Or something I'm paraphrasing horribly. But basically the point is, if it's cool in the story, or if it helps the story go along, or if it would hinder the story, just don't worry about it. Figure out what you want to do with the story and the narration, and then look to the rules. Okay? And see how the rules help you do that. D&D is basically, here's all the rules. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. Now tell the story using those rules. Now, obviously, people can fuck with things all they want with D&D and switch it around. But that's the basic design philosophy, I feel. The difference. I like Fate's philosophy a lot better. Because I'm all about the story. Most of us are about the story. If you're all about the mechanics, you may enjoy a thing we call board games. They like rules and mechanics. So, yeah, it would make sense he would just pop the Zergling. Who cares? Now, if you're up against 300 Zerglings, you may want to check the rules. Actually, you probably don't have to because he's going to die. So, don't get hung up on the rules in Fate too much. It's a completely flexible system. Do whatever you want with it. as long as the story's cool. Alright. So yeah, he pops the Zerglin. And we end up finding just like this massacre of scientists and security guards just torn apart. And I'm like, shit. Mert gets, at this point, I think he gets a compel. I believe he gets a compel. And, because he took the aspect, he was trying to think of an aspect for like post-traumatic stress, something, post-traumatic stress syndrome or whatever. Disorder, that's what it is. And I was like, you could write post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm just messaging Ziggy my point right now, so I don't forget about it later. He was like post-traumatic. I was like, yeah, you could put that, but it's best to be more evocative and more, it sounds cooler. The wording for aspects is very important. So I suggested Bend Through Hell. Because, it's much more evocative, and there's the negative, of course, but there's also the positive then, that you have seen some serious shit, You have been to the worst and back. So, you are hardened by what you've seen. So yeah, Been Through Hell. Okay, so the compel then, when he saw this just ravaging, was that he basically got flashbacks. Just kind of traumatic shit. So he gave him a fate point. In return, he took 1 mental stress. Okay, so stress, as I said, resets at the end of any scene. Now, for a fight, that's pretty simple. The scene ends when the fight ends. Generally. Not all the time. I guess you could go through like 2 fights in a scene. But generally in most scenes, there's only going to be 1 fight. I guess. But yeah, a scene isn't going to be a tremendous length of time as far as fights are concerned. But when you're out of fights, you're just, exploring or talking and you're doing whatever you're doing. A scene is kind of a foggy estimate of time. So, but that's the thing, it's like for Fate, it feels so much more collaborative. D&D feels kind of adversarial at times. I doubt I'm the only one to experience this. Where it feels like it's us against the DM. He's our enemy, he's trying to kill us, we're trying to beat him. That's not what RPGs are about. Maybe some RPGs, but not most of them. It's supposed to be a collaborative thing where you're all trying to have fun, you're all trying to tell a cool story, and the DM is just kind of the puppeteer for the NPCs and for the world and stuff. But you're all together, really. Fate feels more so in that aspect. Because you're all trying to build this story. And so it feels a lot easier in Fate to just throw out a suggestion for whatever. For an aspect, for a consequence, for a rule question, whatever. It's just, what about this? And he's like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Because you're all just building the same story. It's fun. So, like, we've had that for D&D, for Call of Cthulhu, stuff like that, where a player will suggest something, and then I'll be like, well, we can't use that because you said it. And that feels kind of strange, Can't use it because somebody mentioned it, Fate, it's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. There's a different feel to it, So we were just like, what if the scene ends when we get off the ship? Like, yeah, okay. Boom. So now we have the scene ends when you get off the ship. So he took the Bend Through Hell compel for the traumatic thing, so he took 1 mental stress. As I just messaged Ziggy, it should have been more than that. It should have been probably 2. Or a consequence, maybe a mild consequence, something like that. 1 mental stress is pretty weak, in my opinion. For a fate point, I feel it should be a little bit higher. Granted, the scene was kind of extended since it was the entire time we're on the ship. And if you're going to keep bringing up mental stress, yeah, that's appropriate. But if it's just that and that's it, then okay, it should be more than that. But, so he took 1 mental stress for the traumatic visions. And I'm like, damn. Well, these people don't need their belongings anymore, and so I start rifling through. Okay, so I start rifling through their shit because I'm a kleptomaniac. And this is what I said, where it's like, you're in a scene, you're in a situation, you could do this as like, again, just you're playing as a player, kind of like how D&D is, or you can look at your aspects and be like, okay, what would this character do? And you're thinking about this from just a roleplay perspective, but you're also thinking about this in a potential compel perspective, because you as a character, as a player, can suggest your own compels. It's crazy. This comes up later on. And I didn't suggest this as a compel because I don't know, I didn't. But I was like, well, I'm going to rifle through their shit because that's what I would do. I'm a kleptomaniac. It says right there. And so then Ziggy could have said, yeah, these people are infected, and one of them just like explodes all over you, and he throws me a fate point. He could have done that. Because I did that, I started pickpocketing them because I'm a kleptomaniac. And so him exploding, that affects me. And I was in that situation because of my aspect. So my aspect complicated my life. And not the other two, They were pickpocketing because that's not who they were. It's not their aspects. You understand what I'm saying? So whenever an aspect complicates you, even if it's after the fact, you can still get a fate point out of it. So it's not just like, here's a compel. Do you want to accept this, No, the DM can still just do shit randomly. But he should give you a fate point if your aspect made problems because of it, So, again, it encourages the roleplay. I like it. Okay, so I pickpocketed him. Nothing bad happened, and I got, like, a key card. I got, like, the security captain's key card, which was pretty useful. And I was like, yeah, all right. All right, so we moved through, and we went into the security booth. And here we found a guy that just got, like, pierced with a bunch of quills or something. So he got pretty messed up. And we were looking through the security cameras, and we saw maybe things like shifting, slithering, stuff like that. And I was looking for archive footage, and I didn't find a great deal. But yeah, we could tell there's a problem here. There's an infestation. So this only served to rile up the Protoss. I was like, we need to get what we need and get out. But we got to explore the whole place because there could be valuables. But we also need these fuel cells. So looking through the cameras, we found out that they are in the power or the engine room. And we also found a schematic for the ship. So we got a blueprint or whatever, a layout. We're like, okay, so we look at that. And we were right next to the testing room, the testing chamber, where they were apparently doing experimentations on Zerg to find out, build some drug for resistance to diseases. And we're just like, fools. So we did not want to go to the testing room. Not so much. But the elevator was right there. Like, okay, so we were also next to the med bay, so we checked out the med bay, and There was some valuable drugs in there, so I, of course, stole all that shit. And there were some med kits. We took that. And then we went, like, all the way back around through the airlock, around the airlock area, and we went to the, like, the quarters, like the living quarters. So we pop open that door, we walk in, we're immediately greeted by some shaky scientist holding a blaster at us. And so Ziggy offers a fate point to Mert, because shoot first, ask questions later. And so he's like, yep. Boom! Goodbye, scientist. And it's like a Gauss rifle, but it's really more of a minigun. So it's just like, and just filling them with holes. So his head just pops off, and I'm just like, well, that's what I pay you for. So I go over to pickpocket this guy, but all I find is like some computer device that's filled with holes, and I'm like, And we also find a couple of like storage chests, storage compartments. So I pop the lock on one of them and find some more credits. Of course, that is the sci-fi currency of choice. And like another audio log talking about this Dr. Bradley, he insisted on doing all this experimentation and shit. And there was another lock that I apparently fumbled a roll pretty badly on. And I'm still getting used to the system. So I forgot about my burglar signature. I could have done that to re-roll or whatever, but so whatever. I fumbled it, so I broke the lock. And so Mert went up to it, and he started bashing his rifle into it, and he screwed that up pretty well. So we got it open, but the computer components inside were busted to hell, so great. Alright, and so we're like, well, I think the armory was there. Yes, there was the armory, which Mert was very interested in. So we popped that open. And lo and behold, right in the middle is a giant pulsating pod. Ziggy offers another fate point to Mert to shoot first and ask a question later. Fortunately, he refused it, so he had to give up a fate point to refuse. It would have been bad news if he had shot it, because our resident Zerg hunter discovered that, there's something inside. He can't pinpoint exactly what, but there's a good chance it might be a baneling, which apparently explodes with caustic acid, which would melt right through the ship. Great. So luckily he didn't shoot, and he calculated that it would probably hatch in about 40 minutes. Okay, great. We have a time limit. So at this point, I think he contacts the ship captain on our ship, the other ship, and he asks if he has any weaponry, heavy ordnance. So maybe I have a bomb or something. Get that prepared. We may need to move that over here. Oh boy. And so we go through the armory, and Mert grabs a flamethrower, and I grab a couple incendiary grenades. And so, his Gauss rifle is really big, it's a minigun, basically. The flamethrower, also really big and really heavy. He can't put down either one. Well, he'll refuse to put down his Gauss rifle. That must have been one of his aspects or something like that. This is my rifle, this is my gun, or something. I don't know what it was. It wasn't that, because that's clever. So no, he refused to put it down, so he had to dual wield with one in each arm, and so I think he took a physical stress for that. And that was appropriate. I liked that. Because it's you can do this. it's just going to kind of strain you a little bit. And if the scene ends when we get off the ship, you know, if we get into combat or something, you're taking physical stress, having one less box kind of sucks. So I felt like that was appropriate. That was a good choice. You know, he's strained. So, okay. So we're like, what should we do with this pod? I wanted to just blow it, you know, burn it up with an incendiary grenade, but they were worried it would melt through the ship. So we're like, you know, we'll leave it here. We'll blow the whole ship to Kingdom Come, and it'll be done. Okay, so we close the door, and we're like, let's go to the testing room. We go to the testing room, and of course they had those incubation tubes or whatever they are, where they're just floating in liquid, and most of them are broken open, of course. Very Super Metroid, that's another one where that happens. Oh man, that's such a trope. And so there was nothing really there, though. So there was no danger. Like, we were cautious as hell, but there was nothing really there. So we quickly went into the elevator, and, you know, and we went up to the second floor. Okay. So here they had kind of like a branching pathway. So we get to kind of the center of this pathway, and we notice that the area, the path leading to the brig, is covered in like an infestation, like defiled ground, basically, just nastiness. And we're like, we're like right next to the power room, but you know, we're gonna need to like carry those with us then, and we want to explore the whole place. And if one of those gets like shot, we're probably all going up. So let's save that for last. Gotta explore everything, so might as well check out this brig. So we're walking towards the brig. We like walk through a door, and we all have to roll athletics. So athletics is the main defense skill for combat by default. For physical attack, mental attacks is will, but for physical, it's all athletics. Now it mentions maybe you can house rule it so that guns don't get to use athletics, because it's just, you know, if you're in a system and you don't want people to dodge bullets, then there's no defense. But then guns are really dangerous, much like real life. So, but for now, yeah, athletics is the main defense. And so he's like, oh, everybody roll athletics. We kind of really, we all sucked. We all botched the rolls. It was terrible. And I don't really have an aspect that I could use to invoke. So, yeah, not really. Nothing would make sense. So, that's why you want your aspects to be very varied and, you know, diverse and applicable. Because, hey, maybe if I had written something differently or written in something else, maybe I could have, you know, okay, maybe if I'm a former circus performer or something, I don't know. Yeah, that would make sense. I'm very agile at dodging things. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so we all botched. So we all got hit with, like, this fungal growth. And so this was good because it let me explain situational aspects to Ziggy. So we all got hit by fungal growth. And I was like, okay, so what's going to happen is we all get a new aspect. Temporary, basically. And so that's why for playing Fate, you should have just a piece of paper with you for writing all sorts of shit. So we take that where you write fungal growth. So a situational aspect, it is an aspect. So it's invoking, compels, all that, just like an aspect. But then it's also, you know, it's going to do something, you know. If you have the on fire aspect, like, it's not just going to be, oh, I can invoke that, you know. It's also the fact that you're on fire, so you're going to be taking physical stress or whatever like that. So, you know, it's going to do something in addition to being an aspect. But, okay, so we have the aspects, fungal growth. And the creature that shot that at us, or any creature really, I think any creature, can invoke that for free once. So what it did I mean, it has to be related in some fashion, you know. So what the fungal growth did was basically immobilize us and start, like, eating away at us. So, okay, we're immobilized now. So now, if the creature fires a follow-up attack, he can then get the free invoke because we are immobilized. So normally, I mean, he could invoke that, you know, again and again every turn until we get rid of it, but he only gets the one free invoke, so he doesn't have to spend a fate point. So that's exactly what he did. He shot like some more quills off at Mert, and so Mert had the fungal growth. He couldn't move, so of course that's going to hinder his defense. So he, you know, the monster did the roll. He added the free invoke for the +2. Mert rolled his thing. And he got, I think he tied in the end. So here's where we, I guess the toughest part of running Fate is the minor major costs. So if you fail, if you roll lower than, you know, the opposition, you fail. Or you can succeed with a major cost. If you tie, you succeed with a minor cost. So I think that's the trickiest part, is coming up with, on the spot, a major or a minor cost. Because here it's like, okay, he succeeded, which means he dodged the attack, but he takes a minor cost. Now, it just requires a lot of ingenuity on the DM's part, but all the players can come in with suggestions. These are all valid. I mean, the DM should listen to all these suggestions. Because 4, 5 minds are better than 1. There's nothing wrong with utilizing these suggestions. So for a major cost for something like that situation, I would probably say, like, he dodges it, but, you know, he, like, twists his ankle in the process. So he doesn't take the damage from that, but then he might have a mild consequence. You know, twisted ankle. Something like that. Now, is a mild consequence equal to a minor condition? Or minor... What the hell is even the... I'm blanking here. Okay, failure is success with a minor... Or a major... Man, why am I blanking on what word I just used? I guess condition's fine. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we'll just move on. You get what I'm saying. That I think that's the toughest part of running Fate, is that kind of ad-lib for that shit. Because it's like, you know, how major is major and how minor is minor. You know. But, so I think he said, alright, you can dodge it completely if you give me a Fate point. And he's like, sure. So, is giving up a Fate point a minor cost? There it is. I don't know. He accepted it, so sure, just go with it. Who cares? Fine. You know, there's going to be situations where he can easily come up with a minor cost or a major cost, and there's going to be times where he's just like, I don't know, and do this, or you know, we might have to suggest something, or whatever, so keep it flowing. Okay, so then we did initiative, and initiative in Fate Core is just the notice skill. So, I don't remember if it's a roll with the notice or it's just your notice skill. I think it's just your notice score. So, it's pretty quick, pretty basic. So mine is +3, the monsters was +2, they had +1. So I'm like, alright, I roll first. So I'm going to throw my incendiary grenade. And we did some looking at, like, what skill would work here, you know. Really, there is no good throw skill. So we ruled it under shoot. Unfortunately. Because I have 0 in shoot. But yeah, I don't know what else would really work. Nothing much makes sense, because it's not really an athleticism thing. I guess it could be, but considering the main 3 attack skills are fight, shoot, and provoke. I guess it would have to be shoot. So I rolled that, and I did not roll well. I was like, I want to invoke my I would die for my team aspect. Because we are in a shit situation here. We're all immobilized, staring down this, like, infestor creature. So this is life or death. I need to succeed. So I invoke, give up the fate point. Still falls short. Actually, no. I threw it, but I forgot to pull the pin. Okay. It was like, some players might be like, that's fucking bullshit. I gave up a fate point. I should succeed. Some players will say, alright, that's cool. That's how we work. Now, I guess that's kind of it's a big difference in your player base, you know. Like, that's, I guess, the D&D style. The D&D style, in this situation, it would have rules for this and this. Be like, you need to hit this number, you roll this skill, you do this, you add this, the opposition is this, blah, blah, blah. This is just like, alright, you forgot the pin, what are you guys going to do? You know, it's boom. It's like night and day, you know? And so if your players can handle the Fate style, I think they'll have a lot more fun. Because it's just, go with it, man. It's just fun shit. D&D, like, there's, like, death, you know? Your character dying. D&D, it's like, okay, if you hit this number of health, you are unconscious. If you hit this number of health, you're dead. You roll death saving throws, you do this, okay, you're done, you're dead. You make a new character. Fate, it's just like, if it fits in the story, if the DM wants it, if it works like that, alright, you're dead. Otherwise, we're just going to keep the story going, baby. You know, that's just so different. The rule's light, but I like it, you know? So, alright, so yeah, I threw it, I didn't pull the pin, they were like, oh shit! And so, the thing fired the quills at Mert, he dodges, and I'm like, shoot the grenade! And he's just... And it was just cool, you know? And, you know, he rolled. And he rolled, of course, well, because we did the weapon 3 thing. I don't even know how that would apply, but you know, whatever. Just keep it going. It was fun. So, okay, he shoots the thing a bunch of times, and he's, like, moving his gun down. He finally hits the grenade. It blows up, big explosion, and we're like, yeah! But then the thing's, like, horribly burned, but it's still alive. So, you know, it goes up to the Protoss' turn, and he's just like, psionic storm! And he just melts the dude's brain, and it's just like, you know, completely different than D&D. Because in D&D, that fight would have lasted a half an hour. Here it lasted 3 minutes, but it was hella cool. Because we all worked together, it was explosive, it was fun, and we kicked its ass. And there's no XP, we didn't get anything like that, we didn't get any loot, but it was just like, yeah, that was cool. And you're going to be like, you know, a week from now or something, you're going to be like, hey, remember when we totally just blew up that infestor shit? That was cool. Yeah, I mean, cool moments happen in D&D, of course, but again, I'm just talking from my little brief experience here. Alright, so we blew that up, it felt badass, there was no loot there. Yeah, there was, I mean, I'm speaking from Locke's perspective. Like, okay, great. And so we went back, and we went to... Oh, there was a utility closet. And the Protoss had sent some living creatures in the utility closet. So we're like, you know, get ready. He opens the door, and we find a couple of humans. And one of them is like a lieutenant. One of them is like a scientist. And she stands up, and he's like, oh. She's like, oh, a Protoss. Oh. And, well, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Lieutenant John Zielinski. What happened here? And so I had to roll my deceive. And to make her believe it. And here's where I fucked up in character creation. I didn't think it through. I was like, the book is called The Lies of Locke Lamora, and I put my deceive at +1. That was a terrible idea. Just shit. So, but yeah, you kind of have to pick what you want to be really good at. I should have lowered stealth probably, because I didn't get to use stealth once during the thing. There were times I mean, this is a very specific situation on this ship that I'm not really suited for. So if we were in a city and we were meant to smuggle something out, yeah, I would probably want to be good at stealth. But yeah, I should have put deceive higher. Okay, so she didn't buy it, but she went along with it for now. And so she's saying how, you know, shit hit the fan and they hid in there and blah, blah, blah. I called her a coward or something like that. And I was like, she leads us over to the bridge. If she heads over to the bridge, she starts walking towards it. And I'm like, I look at Ziggy and I'm like, I really shouldn't, but I feel the need to pickpocket her. And so I'm asking for a compel on my kleptomaniac. And he accepted, he gave me the fate point, and I rolled for the pickpocket. Now, this, I mean, it can go both ways. I can fail the pickpocket right now. That's obviously going to be problematic. I can succeed on the pickpocket, and it could still be problematic. You know, if I pickpocket something and she notices down the line, that's still problematic. So it's still a compel. But yeah, so I pickpocket her, and I think I tie. So I succeed with a minor cost. And so, again, we did some talking, and I'm like, you know, what if I just steal something that she might need in a few minutes? So I steal her key card. Okay, so we go to the bridge, and she's talking, and she's like, we need to contain the situation. I'm like, that's what we're here for. And I think I said, like, I'm the ranking officer here, so you're gonna do what I say. And she's like, what's your verification code or identification number, something like that. So I tried another bluff, but of course this is gonna be much more difficult, and I don't think I did very well. I just said some random string of numbers, and she's like, well, once we get to a formal outpost, then we can make that transition. But as for now, I'm still in charge. And so this is where Mert steps in. He's like, I'm going to have to disagree. And he holds out his gun. And he took a stunt. It was like, we made it up. It was like down the barrel of my gun, where in situations where his gun is involved, gets a +2 to provoke. So, yeah, he rolled. He did well enough. And so she backed down. She's like, I see. Well, what would you have us do? And I'm like, return to our ship through the airlock. We'll finish up here and meet you there. She's like, I just need one last thing. I need to make a copy of all the research information. And I'm like, I will take care of that. You head back. Fine. So they scuttle off. Now, I'm getting this research information because I can sell that shit to the highest bidder. Because that's what Locke's all about. So, you know, it's just a one-shot, but it's just like, you know, like you're just thinking of the future. Even though it's a one-shot. Like, that's cool. I've never really done that. In a one-shot, I'm always just like, how do I mess everything up because this is fun? I'm going to blow all this up. Here it's just like, man, I can sell this down the way and make a shit ton of cash. That was very different for me. I never experienced that. So, yeah. We were like, how much time left until that thing blows, the baneling or whatever. And so you had Mert roll like 2d6, and so it's like 8 minutes left. Holy shit! Like, where did the time go? Maybe the elevator ride was like 30 minutes long. It's like Mass Effect. So, like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to finish up here. You guys go get the power cells. I also asked her at one point what happened to the captain of the ship. She's like, he was compromised. Okay. So they go off to the, they go off to the engine room. I get the research information, and then I head over to the captain's quarters. And I use a key card, I bust in there, and I immediately see a safe, and I'm like, all right. And it's got like a thumb pad, a fingerprint analyzer or whatever, and a retina imager. I'm like, I need to bypass that. So I do all this hacking, and I roll my burglary, and I use my burglar signature, because I'm sure I've encountered this before, and so I pop it open. But I tied, so I succeeded at a minor cost. And he's thinking about it, and he's like, it's going to be an unknown minor cost for now. Those are the best. I'm like, okay, I don't care. So I open it. There's a bunch of credits in there. There's like a special pistol. I'm like, oh, I'll take that. There's and then there's a cryo case. Like there's like this little cryo canister that has something inside of it. I'm like, shit, highest bidder. So I pocket that. I'm like, let's go. So I run to the engine room. In the meantime, they popped open the doors there. They find a man wearing a captain's uniform, unconscious. And they go, shit. And there are 6 extra power cells sitting around. And I imagined these power cells to be exactly like the things in Pitch Black. I think that's exactly what they were. So just picture that. And so they wake up the captain. I would not have done that. I would have just been like, leave that son of a bitch here. We're going to blow this place up. Because I don't like the Dominion. This guy said he's been compromised. You know, they said he's been compromised, so he's probably infected with some shit. Just, hell no. So I rush in there. I see them waking him up. And there's very little time. Like, we do like a reroll. He does like a reroll to see how much time we have left. And he rolls 2. So we have 2 minutes left before that thing explodes, and we probably all die. In some way, shape, or form. We don't want that thing to pop open. We want to be out of here. So I'm just like, they're like, Mert asked the captain, he's like, can you carry a power cell? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, all right, here. So Mert grabs 3 of them. They're each like 80 pounds. And he has to drop his flamethrower. And I think he took another physical stress for it. So he's got like 3 of them. Like one's on his shoulder. I don't know how he did it, but he's like, ugh, Donkey Kong or some shit. The Protoss grabs 1, and the captain grabs another. And I'm just like, there's no way we're going to get out of here in time. You know, there's no way we're going to get the bomb in here in time, you know. You guys just go. So they start hustling out of there. So they get in the elevator, and I'm like, I need to rig this last power cell to blow. So I take out my incendiary grenade, and I put it on a I want to rig it for like a timed release to blow up this power cell. So I think I roll. And he let me use half of my burglary skill rounded down. So it was just like a +1, which was better than my crafts at +0. So I do that, I roll, and I'm not sure if I invoked I would die for my team or not. I don't think he did, because he was like, yeah, it's fine. So I rig it up. There's like a minute left. They get to the bottom of the elevator doors open, and they see the lieutenant standing there with a blaster. She's like, "You're not Dominion." And they're like figuring out what to do, because they're holding power cells. These things will freaking blow the hell up. So at that point, I had finished rigging it up, so I hit I'm mashing the elevator button to come back up while they're still standing in it. So the doors come to a close and they go back up. And so I rush in and I'm like, down, 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 down. we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go. And I tell him, I'm like, I rigged the power cell. He's like, what did you set the timer for? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, oh shit. So I'm just like, they tell me the lieutenant's waiting with a gun. And I'm like, just bowl past, just run. So the door's open, and we're just like, oh! And so we did kind of like a fate dice thing. So he let us each roll 1d6, and we needed to roll higher than a 6 total. If we roll 6 or less, she shoots one of the fuel cells, we all die. If we roll higher, we bowl past her, and we get out. I roll a 1. Commander Kill rolls a 2. Mert rolls a 3. So exactly 6. And Ziggy's just like, you know what? It's a one-shot. So you tackle past her. And just as you get back onto the ship and detach, it all blows up. And you make it out. Yeah! Just like, yeah, man. It's one shot. It's fun. Nobody, like, we didn't die, but it was just crazy cool shit. And so that's how we ended. And he gave us all a moderate consequence for fudging that last thing. I mean, it doesn't matter. It was a one-shot. It doesn't matter. But, you know, if it were to continue, obviously. I had the consequence fear of explosives. Because I was just an inch away from death by explosion. Mert had the morbidity consequence. So he's, for a little while, he's going to be much more morbid about life, you know, and how close he came to death. And then the Protoss got dislike of human technology. So these are all mental consequences, which are a bit more I don't want to say vague, but more, I don't know what I want to say, less defined maybe, I don't know, more role playable maybe. Physical consequence, very specific. Broken leg, gash across your neck, you know, missing an ear, whatever. You know, it's just like, okay, it's exactly what it is, you know, what it says on the plate. Mental consequence is much more, you know, it's like a mental illness, you know, it's like depression, or it's like, you know, fear of explosives, you know, it's like a paranoia or something in Call of Cthulhu, where it's just like, all right, role play this shit. So now, for a while, I'm going to have a fear of explosives, so I'm not going to suggest it for a plan or anything like that. I'm not going to be the one to rig it up next time, you know? So I like that. It also takes up a consequence slot, which is bad. But, yeah, that was like, okay, you get out with the skin of your teeth, but not unscathed. So yeah, that was our first experience with Fate in the Starcraft universe. I know it not really Starcraft, it's just kind of sci-fi. There was some Zerg, but yeah. And we really enjoyed it a lot. So much so that Ziggy messaged me afterwards. He says, I love Fate. And if we continue our Senathar campaign, it's going to switch over to Fate. So it's no longer going to be our D&D campaign. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really different. I mean, as I said, 4th edition D&D in general, it's great for running combat. You know, there might not, I mean, maybe there is a better system for combat, but if you just want rules-heavy, board game-esque combat against all sorts of different creatures and different situations, D&D's great. You know, we enjoy it. But if you just want a kick-ass story and great role-playing and, you know, storytelling, Fate's great. Even what we did for the one-shot, it was basically like a sci-fi dungeon crawl when you think about it. I mean, there was monsters, there was basically traps, and it was kind of exploring around. It was still great. Now picture it just like in a city or something, where you're really doing like social aspects and all sorts of stuff like that. And yeah, Fate's cool. Bottom line. And like I said, just playing through it, I was just thinking about the future. I wasn't even in the one-shot mindset. It's just like, man, I'm gonna sell off this. I'm gonna find out what's in this cryo case. I gotta piss. I gotta offload something. Yeah, it was really cool. So, and it's free. That's a pretty big plus. The Fate Core is definitely free, and they have a bunch of other settings. And I'd definitely like to see some books giving some information about maybe like monsters or weapons, or just kind of not generic setting stuff, but like say we are gonna transfer over our little D&D thing, having some Fate generated monsters might be useful. Or maybe it wouldn't be, because maybe it's just, it's a goblin. Deal with it as it is a goblin. You don't know its stats. It doesn't really have stats. It has whatever Ziggy thinks is appropriate. And yeah, a goblin is going to feel very different than a dragon, because it's just narration instead of mechanics, You're not thinking about, okay, mechanically, this dragon has 180 HP, and okay, he's going to have an AC of about 24, so okay, I got to roll this, and okay, he's going to have a fire breath, once per encounter, it recharges when he's bloodied, so okay, we gotta watch out for that. No, it's just like, holy shit, a dragon! It's completely different. You don't think about it mechanically, you think about it as a story. You're some guy, and there's a freaking dragon, I'm really looking forward to that. So maybe we don't need stat blocks or anything. We just go with the story, man. That's what it's built for. I really like it. So I'm not sure what I can call that other series. It's not role Mangging D&D, but how do I show that it's the same story? Like, it's the same campaign. Maybe I'll put D&D Fate, or I don't know, something like that. But yeah, so our campaign is switching over, so I'm gonna have to make Ovum then in Fate Core. His trouble is definitely gonna be signless, because it's too perfect. But yeah, so that's our experience with Fate so far. I'm really looking forward to playing more. I got to get Locke over to Senathar at some point. I'm sure it'll happen. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to really say. Now that I've played it, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's free, man. Get your group together one night. Just get it going. I mean, we had two people that basically knew almost nothing about it. Even Ziggy just watched the video, so there was not a whole lot of knowledge at that table. And I just gave them the piece of paper. I just walked them through it. Character creation took us like half an hour, maybe, just going through every step, and then it's just like, go. Ziggy didn't really. I don't think he even had much of a plan. Maybe he did, but I don't think he had much. And we had a very enjoyable 3-hour session, 3.5-hour session. So yeah, check it out, Fate Core, and we will continue to hear much about it as our D&D campaign switches over. You could easily run Call of Cthulhu, because sanity and mental stress go right hand in hand. I mean, basically, so you can run anything. Anything you want. It's Fate Core. Go. Alright, so my name is Mang. This has been Roll Mangy. And I guess we will hear more about Fate in 2 weeks.